like and subscribe. Serious, what was the scariest experience you have been through? My boss dropped dead on the dance floor at the company Christmas party. A random man came up to me late one evening when I was putting groceries in my truck. He was sitting on a bike, but asking me for a ride. I told him no, but he continued to insist. I went to put the cart away, and he had put his bike into the bed of my truck and climbed into the passenger seat. I had no phone, no one was out, and I froze. I made the poor choice to give him a ride. I was god terrified, and I don't think I blinked the entire time as the man said things like your husband is a lucky guy or wow your lips look nice. Fortunately my lack of response seemed to deter him, and we finally parted ways. Don't be me. Make a scene. Politeness. Anything to get this person away from you. I once got stuck on a rock when I was scuba diving, and I passed out, but my dad saved me. When I woke up I was so nervous I threw up the entire contents of my stomach and the water I kept drinking to deter the vomit taste just because I was super nauseous and nervous. Me, 7 at the time, my cousin, 4 at the time, and my dad went to the beach and my cousin tripped and hurt herself pretty badly, so my dad had to run back to the house with her to access the first aid kit. I did not want to run, so I walked home. It was only about a 5-minute walk anyway. On the way home I passed this man's house, who I want to say was 40ish, and he started catcalling me. I did not really know what that was, so I just stared at him and kept walking. He did not like that I did not respond I guess, and he started chasing me. My grandpa saw, and started yelling at the man and ran off. If I was not in eye view of the house, who knows what would have happened to me. Finding my dad dead after he killed himself. His room had never been so quiet and still. I stepped in and saw him face down, blue, with his urine all over the floor where he peed himself after he passed. I was in complete shock, and I'll never forget touching him to try to wake him up and the feeling of recognition finally setting in. Even though I'd known as soon as I stepped in the room that he was dead, my mind refused to let me accept it was true until I felt him and tried to shake him awake. Feeling his stillness was the most terrifying moment of my life, and I don't remember much after that. It clicks in your head that this person is *GONE*. They are never coming back. And then the guilt and pain come rushing in. The days leading up to his suicide were filled with fear and anxiety because I knew deep down that it was coming one day and there was nothing I could do to stop it. That feeling of hopelessness is hard to put into words. Edit, ***, second scariest experience of my life was the time my dad tried to kill himself by stabbing himself in the head, overdosing, and tying a gun to his hand before firing twice. SWAT ended up coming to stop him, and the bullets shot out the window and missed by centimeters. I'll never forget falling to my knees outside and covering my ears because I was terrified of hearing him die. I heard the gunshot anyway and thought he was dead. I ended up having to clean up all of the blood left behind. I was terrified of him being mad at me for putting him in a psychiatric hospital. At that point, he'd made comments about killing all of us and then himself a few months prior, so that night I genuinely thought I was going to die. When I was 10 years old, I was abducted while my family and I were camping at a state lake. My parents had to run some errands, so all us kids were left with one of our aunts. I went to a creek next to where our camper was to go fishing, probably about 75 yards or so. I had forgot my bait and did not want to go back for it. Lucky for me, a man was there, so I asked him for some worms. Said they were in his car just around the corner. He guided me there, and that was when it happened. I was gagged and taken to a different part of the park grounds. What happened next, as one could imagine, are the things my nightmares were made of for countless years to come. I am 33 now and still recall with vivid details the things that were done. Thankfully I was found within about 2 hours of my abduction. Unlucky for him, it was my father who found us first. The man somehow managed to escape my father's wrath and flee. He was apprehended by state troopers and local PD about 30 minutes later. Cue all the legal shenanigans and sentencing. Dude was a repeat offender and still only received like 12 years prison. My family kept tabs on him while he was in custody and were notified of his release. The second scariest thing was the day he was released. My heart dropped. Hell has long been a fragment of past, and I learned to not live in fear over that any longer. I appreciate any/all of you that may read this, or if you need someone to talk to, then my DMs are always open. Edit. I appreciate all the people that have reached out and offered support. I was lucky to have an amazing support group in my immediate family and several counselors/therapists. My life was a little messed up, had behaviors problems and whatnot, but that was expected. Again, I really appreciate your guys' concerns and comment, but after 22 years I can confidently say that I'm not scared of that person/situation any longer. Was riding my motorcycle and a car just drove straight into me, stolen. Right before we collided, probably combined 70 miles per hour, my actual words were, "I am dead." Then I got flung into the air, knocked right out of my shoes, and knocked out before I hit the floor on the opposite side of the middle of the road. I woke up badly injured to drag myself away from the middle of the road right as a random car drove by and almost ran right over my body. Scary. Now off to bed to fight the nightmares. The vertical bar adderer, E. Got hit by a car, and was kinda just on the hood of the car for a bit before the guy realized he hit me and stopped. It was short-lived, but I thought my toddler was with his father. His father thought he was with me. I was in a room feeding the baby. We were at a relative's property, a property with a murky water dam on it. Never felt such deep dread in my entire life. Turned out he had spotted a small horse in the meadows, and that's where I found him, near a fence watching the horse. Fatter sort of how my dad passed when I was around 10. My dad just had some teeth stuff done and was prescribed some painkillers. I grew up with my mom and dad being separated, so I had two households. I was told that he thought he had me for the night I was with mom, and he could not find me, and he went searching for me. He ended up trying to scale a fence and fell and broke some of his vertebrae, which caused him to become a quadriplegic. He survived 2 years in hospital. Every time I think about it, I cannot imagine how scared he was trying to find me. I was in Africa, and every evening a big male lion would walk through the camp. He would roar outside my tent, and it was blood-curdling. I could even smell him, he was so close. Nothing separated me from him but a thin layer of canvas. He would hang around for 45 minutes to an hour at a time. You cannot imagine the horror of that sound. Almost drowned surfing. The ocean does know it really around. Despite having no history of epilepsy or related issues, I had a series of seizures at work back in 2018. It started with the simple walk into a room and forget why at the time, except I completely forgot the few seconds it took me to walk there. Then it escalated, and I could feel something coming on. I did not have convulsions, but my body could not respond to anything. I was just stuck, staring straight ahead, unable to speak or move. I did not know what was wrong with me. EEG and vitamin deficiency tests all came back okay in the hospital, so it was written off as stress. I am constantly worried about it happening again due to the nature of my work. 6 straight days in a very poorly run mental hospital. When I was 14, 4 boys attacked me in the woods near my house. They tied me to a tree and took turns beating me for half an hour. I thought they would kill me. My grandma died from Alzheimer's, and have a fear my mother will have it one day. I was house sitting for my parents, and when they got back from their vacation my mom was sitting on the couch and fell asleep at like 2 a.m. I gently woke her up and asked if she would like to go to bed or if she wanted to just sleep there, and she was so out of it. Like, where am I? Where is my room again? Then stumbled off to fall asleep in bed. That moment was terrifying for me. She is 100% mentally okay, and don't know if she will ever get Alzheimer's, but seeing a level of mental sluggishness that reminded me of my grandmother was terrifying. The only other thing I can think of was the acceptance that I needed help, and there was going to be a very long road ahead of me that was likely going to be horrible. I had a few suicide attempts and ECT. Attempting suicide wasn't really scary. Accepting that I didn't want to die and needed help was. My son disappeared at an apartment complex for about 15 minutes. Until then, I had never experienced any real fear or anxiety. Same. Our son was 4 and decided it would be funny to hide from us in Sears. He was going all out not to be found. They locked the store down and had everyone looking for him. I was terrified to my core. Then a lady said, "Could he be hiding?" So I called out his name. He didn't answer. She said, "Scold him." I called his name and said, "This isn't funny. Come out now, or you're getting a timeout." 10 feet away he emerges from a rack of long coats and says, "Are you mad?" I'd never been so happy and relieved in my life. Lived in a second-story apartment for a few years. Was woken up around 2 a.m. one morning to slamming on my door and someone yelling, "Fire." When I opened the door, everything was bright orange and I could hear the very loud crackling of burning wood. Thought it was either my apartment or the apartment under mine that was on fire, and my first reaction was to find my cat and get her out. Halfway through grabbing her, I realized I may have been putting myself in serious danger and thought I'd have to escape off the balcony. Thankfully, for me, it was the apartment across from mine that was on fire, so I was able to get downstairs and to safety with my cat. The next hour or so was a completely different kind of scary as I crossed my fingers the fire would not spread to my apartment. It did not, but 2 buildings were destroyed, 14 residents were displaced, 2 cats lost their lives, and a firefighter was hospitalized. I survived being struck by a pickup truck that was traveling about 50 miles per hour. Lots of broken bones, internal damage to muscle and organs including my heart and brain, and lots of pain. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake and nuclear disaster while living in Fukushima. I left a laundry basket on the space heater at my apartment because it was a warm day and we weren't using it. We had the windows open and went somewhere. But it was late spring and the temperature dropped sharply, and the space heater came on. The basket melted and dripped into the space heater and set the towels on fire. We drove into the drive and saw fire trucks there. The fireman asked if we lived in the apartment. My heart felt like it got squeezed in an iron fist. Things started to go black around the edges of my vision and grew until all I saw was a pin of light. I almost fainted. Fortunately, someone had heard our fire alarm and called 911. They got it just before the walls ignited. My cat was okay too. She literally jumped into my arms when I called her. You've been visited by the ghost of a very important man. Pay your respects by liking and subscribing, and he'll grant you 3 weeks of good luck.